Twin day, everyone. That means let's go. Jumbo, everyone. My name is Joe, and I will be your safari guide out on the Harambe Wildlife Reserve today. Now, it's going to be a pretty bumpy ride out there, so I do ask that you stay completely seated at all times, keeping those hands, arms, feet, and legs inside the vehicle at all times. Children are allowed to sit on your laps, but they do need to be sitting. Please, no recreations of the Lion King today. They need to be seated, not being lifted up into the air. Now we are beginning our journey on the reserve in the little Atari who you might spot. Over on the right-hand side, that big brown animal with the black and white striped legs, that is an okapi. Now, a lot of people's first instinct is that they might be related to the zebra. They're actually the closest living relative of the giraffe. Up on the hill on the left-hand side, that dark brown antelope, that's a bongo. Now, the bongo is often called the ghost of the forest. They are perhaps some of the best at hiding and camouflaging themselves. Those white stripes kind of simulate the natural sunlight filtering in between the trees. Now, those horns atop their head, both the male and female bongos do have those horns. That helps them navigate the thick trees and underbrush. The way they're curved backwards allows them to be extra agile. Over on the left-hand side against that mud wall, that is a black rhino. Now, black rhinos are the smallest of the rhino species, but they all weigh in at around 3,000 pounds, so they're still pretty big. Now, looking at that rhino's upper lip, it is triangular in shape. That's one of the biggest defining features of the black rhino. Makes them pretty easy to spot in a lineup. Over on the right. Now, we are making our way out of the Little Aturi Forest at this time. Means we are ready to go to the Safi River. Now, animals that make their home in the river are going to spend most of the time, well, in the water, or near the water, or thinking about the water. Over on the right-hand side, while sleeping, they're going to stay fully submerged and just float to the top, take a breath, and go right back down. Over on the left-hand side, up in those trees on that little island, those are pink-backed pelicans. Now, pink-backed pelicans are named for the color on their skin, not their feathers. That pink color gets brighter during mating season. It helps them to attract their mate. And while they are pretty shy and solitary, they will also hang out in nesting pairs between 20 and 500 pairs. Now, friends, we are approaching a bridge, so that means I need everyone fully seated, hands, arms, feet, and legs inside. You never know who's going to make their home under a bridge, but in this case, looks like Nile crocodiles. My friend, little one has to be fully seated. Do not pick them up. Thank you. Over on the left-hand side, making their rounds around their area, those are African wild dogs, often also known as painted dogs. Now, that nickname comes from the colorful splotches of color on their coat. And while they do look cute and cuddly, you are looking at the most successful hunter in all of Africa. They have a 90% success rate while hunting. And while they are fantastic hunters, they do have a couple of interesting, their closest friends. And right over here on our left-hand side, those are Maasai giraffes. Now, giraffes are the tallest land mammal, towering up to about 16 to 20 feet high. And they don't just grow tall, they are in fact born tall. Giraffes are born at about 6 feet high. And that 6-foot height is also accompanied by a 6-foot drop. Giraffes are born from 6 feet up into the air and hit the ground, and that's how they are brought in. Now, that drop might seem a little bit harsh, but it's actually really important to a giraffe. And that's because they have that big long neck and they have really big hearts. That drop helps to kickstart their heart and their lungs and sets them up for a healthy life. Now, owning in with the females when it is time for mating season. Now, as we move a little bit deeper into the savanna, now earlier you might have heard me mention that male elephant was an African elephant. These ones are too. We know this from a couple of sources. A, we are indeed in Africa, but they're also much larger than their Asian elephant counterparts. You can also look at those big ears. If you kind of squint a little, they're roughly the shape of the continent of Africa. Now those big ears do serve a purpose. Just like many other animals out on the savannah, elephants have a built-in way to keep cool. For them, it's their ears. By flapping those big ears back and forth, they are able to cool their body temperature down by up to 15 degrees. Now right up ahead on the left-hand side, those are greater flamingos. Greater flamingos are the largest flamingos, but they're not quite the brightest pink, but that's okay. They still have some of their iconic color. Now that color comes from the beta carotene in the brine shrimp that makes up a majority of their diet. They're not born with that color. It takes about 1.5 to 2 years. Kind of like the rudder on a boat. Changes directions, keeps their balance. These rocks over on the left-hand side, those are called Kopi rocks. They provide an excellent lookout spot for other big cats of the savannah like lions. Most prides of lions will choose to make their home on these Kopi rocks because they have that excellent lookout spot. They're able to see any sort of threats or prey that may enter. Looks like we're going to get a better view of those lions just up ahead. Now I know it looks like these guys are being a bit lazy. Lions do spend about 16 to 20 hours of their day resting, but that's just because they're nocturnal. Their eyesight is 6 times greater and they're going to choose to rest up so they are ready to be active at night. Now over on the left-hand side, that's looks like 2 or 3 warthogs. Now warthogs are the largest burrowing land mammals. You see those holes in the ground? That's where they make their homes. Those big tusks that are sticking out, that's how they dig their burrows. The warthogs are big fans of recycling. If they come across the burrow of an animal, these are white rhinos. White rhinos are the largest species of rhinos. Fully grown, they weigh about 5,000 pounds. These guys are much more social than their black rhino friends. They do prefer to hang out in larger groups, usually. Now friends, we are making our way out of the savannah now. We're heading into the newest addition to the Harambe Wildlife Reserve, Magadi Glen. Looks like the warden has set up a post out here, and now our wardens are famous for their creative projects. So let's see what this one... It looks like this warden has the cutest project yet. Those little goats. Those are Nigerian dwarf goats. Now I know they look pretty small, but these guys are actually fully grown. They're gonna stay this size their entire life. Their size is... Farmers are turning to domesticated wild stock instead of continuing to rely on the wildlife around them to make their profits. This turn to farming versus poaching is an excellent example of how humans and animals can in fact live together in harmony when it's done correctly. Now friends, we are making our way out of the reserve at this time, which means it's time to go back to the village. But before I drop you off in the Harambe village, if you're still thinking you'd like to see more animals today, you have a couple of fantastic options. If those Nigerian dwarf goats really caught your eye, I'd recommend you head over to Rafiki's Planet Watch, and specifically the affection section, where you can meet those goats up close and personal while learning more about them.